Hey, two need to knows before I bring up Pastor Brent. The first is that VBS registration is open. We'd love for you to have your kids or neighborhood kids or anybody you can think of being a part of this. This year's theme is Stellar VBS. It's this out-of-the-world space theme where we focus on Jesus' light shining in our everyday lives. So June 5th through 9th is the VBS week. We need a strong, committed volunteer team to pull that off. So if you're interested in that, in either registration or volunteering, the link is included in this email. We'd love to see you there. Next is baptisms. If you are interested in being baptized on Easter Sunday at any of our 4 services, or if you just have questions, what is baptism? At what point in my faith do I need to engage this? What if I was baptized or sprinkled as an infant? All of that stuff, we'd love to engage a conversation with you. So Sunday before Easter, the 2nd, at 5 p.m., we have the baptism class here at the Windsor campus. So love to have you there as a part of that conversation as well. Pastor Brent, I know that you have baptism class coming up as well at the Fort Collins campus.
Yeah, we do. We're really looking forward to that significant moment in people's journey with Jesus. Hey, glad to be with you this week. We're in Mark chapter 3, verses 20 through 35. And we're looking at this passage, and hopefully you've already heard the message, because I want to give you a couple of conversation starters, I guess, to get going. Number one is we looked at this idea within the passage of there is such thing Jesus talks about, and he gives it as a warning, an eternal sin. And oftentimes we kind of conflate a number of things. We read Hebrews chapter 6. It talks about sacrificing Christ again, or 1 John 5, this unforgivable sin, and we sort of conflate them all. But you might be interested to go to those passages along with this, along with what we've talked about this weekend, and to consider this, what is a stern warning from the author of Hebrews, from John, and from Jesus through the author of Mark this particular week, and see if those do fit together. Are they talking about the same thing? Secondly, we looked at this idea within the literary structure of this passage that Mark does something unique that oftentimes the other gospel authors don't. He uses an intercalation, was sort of the fancy word. I like the word sandwich structure, because I can remember that word. I can't remember the other one, where Jesus, he starts doing something, and then the author hits pause, and then he introduces something else, and then he resumes again. And I would encourage you to go to another place where this happens. If you go to Matthew chapter 21, Jesus curses the fig tree and it dies. And then he goes to the temple and he condemns it. Mark chapter 11, same story, but Mark does the sandwich thing, where he says Jesus curses the fig tree, pause. He goes to the temple and condemns it, and then resume. They go back and they see the fig tree and it's dead. And Mark's purpose is to get the reader to realize, oh, the story here and here explain the story here. So I would encourage you to go to those 2 passages, read them, and just talk about the significance of that literary structure. And then thirdly, I would say, one of the points that we talked about this weekend was the idea that Jesus says there's something that trumps your ethnic family, your biological family. There's something that trumps your tradition and your community, and that's your commitment to Jesus. And it would be interesting, and this is a little more personal, if you feel comfortable doing it, is talk about, have you ever been in a place where your commitment to Jesus has actually caused a rift, a tradition in your immediate family? Maybe it's broken relationships. And that's hard, and that's sad, and it's difficult. But again, I would say Jesus comes to this point pretty early on. Mark comes to this point early on in his gospel and says following Jesus may come down to the point where you have to choose between Jesus and your family or your tradition. So talk maybe a little bit about that. Has that ever been the case in your own story, in your life? Hey, so glad you guys are joining together, being Timberline. I hope you guys have a great week.